So the last 4 months, I've been training reinforcement learning agents to play games, and I think I'm good enough at this now to build an actual product out of it. So the point of this video is to talk about my plan and the thought process that went into it. If you've been following my channel, you probably know that I'm not very good at sticking to a plan. And now that I'm doing RL, I have this new problem where my code usually doesn't work properly. So these two things together, I feel like I'm in a very unpredictable situation. And I thought it would be funny to talk about my thought process now before I build anything. And then maybe a few years down the line, it could be funny to see how everything changed. Or maybe not, I'm not sure. If you don't know how RL works, it's actually pretty easy to understand at a high level. Basically, we have an agent that's interacting with some environment with an objective, and it gets a reward signal that tells it whether or not it's doing good or bad, so that eventually it can learn to maximize the reward signal, and then it will perform the task really well. That's how it should work in theory, but in my last 4 months of doing this, it usually does not work. And you have to spend lots of time optimizing the algorithm with random tweaks, like for example, changing the version of some Python package or running your code a bunch of times with different random seeds, and then eventually it sort of works. And if you put lots and lots of effort into optimizing it for a very specific problem, then eventually you can get a very cool looking research demo. But even then, it's hard to understand why it works, and usually your innovations will not generalize to other problems. So my opinion is, if you're the kind of person who just wants to make lots of money right now, then this is a very precarious space to be working in. But for me, I got into this because I've always been a gamer, and in the rare situations where RL is better than humans, it kind of blows my mind a little bit. I mean, I know that a lot of people are talking about using neural nets to better understand the human brain, and I'm not sold on that. But I do think that if we can better understand how RL agents play games, then that is very insightful to know in terms of solving any kind of problem. So when I work on RL, I feel like I'm doing something meaningful while at the same time being fun and challenging, and I don't get that from many other kinds of work, so that's why I'm doing it. But now the question is, how do I turn this into a business? Because I'm not a researcher and I'm not going to get paid a salary just to publish papers. And personally, I would prefer to write code that a lot of people use. So I have several criteria that I thought about to narrow down my big list of product ideas. And the first thing is that, well, if the best researchers at OpenAI DeepMind still can't get this to work consistently, then even though I'm usually very confident in my coding skills, I should not bet on my code being reliable or robust. So I wouldn't build something like a medical device using RL, even though probably someone in the world could do it, but for now that's not me. This narrows down the potential business ideas by a lot, but there are still interesting things you can do with it. For example, YouTube uses RL to recommend videos. And even though sometimes it shows me videos that I'm not interested in, that's not the end of the world, and it still works much better than 5 years ago from before it started using RL. Not saying that I want to build social media algorithms, but that's just the kind of thing that I think is realistic. My second criteria is personal interest, because I've started a lot of businesses before, like drop shipping or software contracting, where I started making money pretty fast, but I wasn't interested in it and I just stopped working on it. And that's actually the main reason why I'm doing RL. But because I'm doing RL, I have this third criteria, which probably would not apply to a lot of other businesses, but I want to do everything open source. So the first reason is because everything is so unpredictable that I think a lot of the value is in letting other developers mess around with my code. But on top of that, I want to make lots of content about this, and so it'll just be easier for you guys to follow along if it's all open source. For the short term, I haven't thought of anything that would be more profitable than making lots of content, and so I want to introduce today's sponsor, which is .tech domains. You might have heard of them already because I've promoted them multiple times, but this time I'm not selling you anything, because .tech is giving away $15,000 worth of sick prizes, including this $5,000 PC. All you have to do to enter is play their free puzzle game, Break the Code. I tried it myself and I got stuck, so I'm probably not going to win the $5,000 PC, but maybe it could be yours. Game is going to be live until December 2nd, and new puzzles will be released throughout the next 2 weeks. So check it out at go.tech/btcwill and have some fun with it. I still find it kind of weird that I'm getting paid to say this stuff, and it's changed my perspective on how to run a business. But at the end of the day, coding is what I know best, so I want to build a programming framework. And specifically, I want to make it easy to turn any game into a Python RL environment, even if you don't have source code access or RAM access to the game. And my reasoning is this. RL, the most direct application right now is games, but very hard to optimize the algorithm to beat humans. So I'm not going to try to do that. Instead, I'll just make a framework so that it's easy for people to plug in the algorithms into the game of their choice. And even if it just works sort of decently, I think it would already be useful for competitive players, researchers, game designers, or content creators like me. So personally, I'm going to be using it for my own Twitch stream where I train RL agents to play games. As usual, I first searched GitHub to see if something like this already exists, and I found Serpent AI, which seems like a good starting point, but I can anticipate lots of problems with it. Like, for example, since I'm relying completely on screen capture data, writing traditional reward functions is going to be very complex, but I'll make do with what I have right now. The short-term goal is to make my Twitch stream as good as possible. I'm not sure how I'm going to do that, but I think a good first step would be to constantly show a game window on the screen with my AI playing the game. So it's just less intimidating for an average viewer to watch compared to staring at a big wall of code. The long-term goal is to generalize the framework so that it's easy to apply RL to any kind of game, which basically means it would be easy to apply RL to any kind of UI application because it's the same problem. And I'm not sure if this is too ambitious. Maybe I won't be able to accomplish this. But I do know if I work really hard on my stream, then that should eventually take off and then I can adjust the vision as I go. I was going to wait until after I built a PC to upload this video so that I could start streaming right away, but then I had to meet the sponsorship deadline. So while I'm building my PC, maybe you can win the $5,000 PC by flexing your problem-solving skills and solving some puzzles over at go.tech/btcwill. Holy, that was a lot of takes.